Well, good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023. And our top story today, North Dakota closes the state's defined benefit pension plan. And joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, Scott Miller is the Executive Director of the North Dakota Public Employees Retirement System. Scott, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, let's I want to give the audience some background here. I mean, obviously some significant changes for the North Dakota public employees pension system. Let's start with what's changing. Do you mind just giving us the high level bit of what is changing with the plan, and then we can get into some of the other details like the why and all that kind of good stuff.
Sure. Well, our main PERS plan is a defined benefit plan. It's been in existence since 1977. Interestingly, the Legislative Assembly at that time did not think a defined contribution plan would provide a good enough retirement benefit. And so that's why they went to a defined benefit plan. We've had some funding issues like everyone did from the global financial crisis. Frankly, the Legislative Assembly has not done enough to help us recover from that. We've asked them every biennium since then for some additional contributions, and we were not successful in getting them. So we ended up proposing a few benefit reductions to try to get that normal cost down, to get the funding up. And unfortunately, they used that against us this session as far as their discussion on the quality of the retirement plan versus other states. It's still a very good plan, especially compared to other states around the country. But nonetheless, they use that in an effort to close our plan, close that defined benefit plan. And keep in mind, we take care of something like 10 different retirement plans, including many defined benefit plans, a defined contribution plan, a 457 deferred compensation plan. So we have experience with a lot of different things. They proposed in House Bill 1040 to close our defined benefit plan for new members effective January 1st of 2025, and have all new members go into a defined contribution plan, a different defined contribution plan than we have right now, much lower contribution, mandatory contribution rate with an election opportunity for people who join that plan. Then interestingly, the last minutes, as we kind of talked before this, the last minutes of the Legislative Assembly, they tried throwing something into one of the bills to move that deadline up to January 1st of 2024. So a full year earlier than everyone had contemplated. Luckily, we were able to catch that and respectfully request, which was granted, the opportunity to at least have some input on whether that actually happens. And so what was also added to that bill was kind of a contingent effective date where it will become effective January 1st of 2024 if the retirement board certifies to the legislative management that that is possible. Right now, that's looking virtually impossible. There's too much programming, there's too many rules that need to be drafted. Frankly, too much going on. There's no way to get it done. But we'll give every effort that we can. But more than likely, this will go into effect January 1st, 2025.
So, Scott, obviously this is a significant change, and I want to get the reaction, from not only your team, but also what are you hearing from other public employees, other North Dakotans who are working for the state and who rely on this defined benefit plan? I would imagine the reaction probably not positive.
That's exactly correct, Jeffrey. It's my board directed me to oppose the bill because we were not confident, the board was not confident that the Legislative Assembly would actually prudently fund the closure. And unfortunately, things that happened during the legislative session did not help that conclusion at all. We have been receiving a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls from current actives and from retirees, frankly, who are very concerned that the fund is going to run out of money. I responded to an active literally just a few minutes ago who asked what's going to happen if we run out of money. And to the Legislative Assembly's credit and the governor's credit, they've all come out and said, we promise this benefit to you folks for doing your job, and we will follow through on that. And so I would have to assume at the end of the day, if it's not funded the way that it needs to be funded, and we do end up running out of money, that the Legislative Assembly will appropriate the necessary dollars for us to make those benefit payments into the future. That's going to be very expensive. I mean, that makes it a pay-as-you-go system like this, like Social Security, and that becomes very expensive. Pre-funding is the way to go. We'll have to see next session whether they actually appropriate the actually determined employer contribution rate that's going to be necessary to actually fund this closure. But to get back to your question, we've had a lot of questions. We're about to send out an email blast to our employees to try to help quell that. My concern is we're going to have kind of some mass retirements. I was actually down in the City of Phoenix Employees Retirement System as their retirement program administrator when the city was contemplating closing the defined benefit plan, and that failed. And yet still 60 to 70% of actives who were eligible to retire took their retirement. And I'm afraid that we're going to lose a lot of people here in North Dakota very quickly.
Yeah, let me ask you one more question before we go to a commercial break. And I was going to ask you about retention, but also recruitment. And, you know, public employees have a vital role to play. And being able to, one of the things that's attractive about working for a public entity, and we've heard this from numerous guests, not just in North Dakota, but around the country, is having that defined benefit plan. Police, firefighters, emergency personnel who do arguably very important work. What about recruitment? I mean, could that be challenging for the Department of Personnel and getting new employees to come work for the state?
Jeffrey, I think that's an excellent point. I think, unfortunately, I think we're going to realize exactly what the National Institute on Retirement Security just came out with as far as recruitment and retention in Alaska. A lot of the proponents of closing the plan were saying new members, Gen X, Gen Z, millennials, they want portability. They want a 450s, or they want a 401k plan. They want a defined contribution plan. We have a defined contribution plan. It was open to all new state employees from 2013 to 2017. 3% of people took it. 97% of people stayed in the defined benefit plan. Their statements do not jive with our actual experience, the actual experience in other states. I think recruitment and retention is going to suffer greatly because exactly what you said, people come to the state for a career. They come to serve their public, to serve the citizens of the state of North Dakota. And they don't, I mean, we have salaries that are 10 to 12% lower than the private sector, but better benefits to try to make up for that. The Legislative Assembly, the governor is aware of that difficulty, and yet we just eliminated one of our biggest calling cards for people coming to work for us.
Look, benefits are important, and we had a show not too long ago about DB plans, pension plans making a resurgence in the private sector. Scott, I need to take a very quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about this change. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. We're joined this morning by Scott Miller. He's the Executive Director of the North Dakota Public Employees Retirement System. Scott, thanks so much for sticking around with us for segment number 2 this morning.
Thank you very much. Again, really happy to be here.
This is a great conversation, and I think this is probably something, Scott, that is happening around the country. I kind of think that, we read about it, we hear about it. People are probably having these conversations. You're now part of those discussions. Scott, let's talk about implementation, because I know you had to push back a little bit on the start date. What are next steps in terms of this new plan? It's a defined contribution plan that's going to be created for new employees. What are some of the next steps that you're thinking about as a team?
Well, we're looking at, we're dissecting the bill, both bills, both 1040 and then the one that amended 1040, to see exactly what was done at the last moment. We were granted a contingent appropriation authority to hire a few more staff, including a defined contribution plan retirement administrator. And so we'll begin the process of the state process for that and getting some of those people on board. Really, the things that are going to take a lot of our time are the rulemaking process. The Legislative Assembly is requiring us to promulgate administrative rules in order to implement the plan. And that really just, as you're probably familiar, and a lot of the folks watching this are probably familiar, that's addressing some of the little questions that didn't get answered in the legislation itself, to the extent that we're able to through the administrative process. And that's a 9 month process. We won't expect to get done with that until the April 1st Administrative Rules Committee meeting next year. So that's why January 1st of 2024 just really wasn't an option.
Yeah,
we also have.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Yeah. We also have significant programming to do. I mean, we've never had a situation where someone could elect a percentage. And so we have to go through a pretty thorough programming on our pension administration software system. And then once we're done, we're going to have to send those requirements to the 93 state agencies and 374 political subdivisions that we have as members in this plan, so that they can modify everything that they have to make sure that it fits. State agencies shouldn't be a problem, but those political subdivisions, I mean, some of them are running Excel spreadsheets, and they're going to have to do some programming in order to get this up and running. And we're looking at all of that taking almost a year.
Yeah. And Scott, I didn't mean, by the way, I didn't mean to interrupt
no worries
you.
at all.
But let me ask you about, you got to choose a vendor. I mean, part of that is you've got to do the programmatic changes internally. And that's, as you said, not insignificant. Those are pretty significant changes that have to be made to be able to take elections, to be able to send dollar amounts, all that kind of good stuff. And by the way, received deferral percentages. What about selection of the vendor? And again, I don't, I know you're trying to put people in place, you're trying to react to this, but I would imagine you would have to go through the RFP process, a request for proposal process, to find an administrator to record keep this plan and provide services.
Exactly. I mean, like I had mentioned, we do have a 457 deferred compensation plan. We do have a 401A defined contribution plan that's slightly different than the new one that's coming out now. And we have a provider for that, but we can't just hand $1 billion project to somebody without going out to bid. And frankly, we're literally at the beginning of the RFP process for those two products as well, because it's just the end of the contract period that we can contract for. And so we're in the middle of that. This kind of dovetails into that. And so this will be added to that work plan. We work with an outside investment consultant to help us with that search. Again, we're at the preliminary stages of that. We'll also have to add a product that we've never had before. The bill requires us to have an annuity option, which we've never had in the defined contribution plan, because frankly, if somebody wanted a guaranteed lifetime income, we figured they would have stayed in the defined benefit plan rather than going to the 401(a) defined contribution plan. And so we'll have that analysis. We've never gone through that fiduciary analysis of the options that are available in order to come up with the right one for our membership.
Last question, Scott, and I got tons of questions, and we're going to invite you back throughout the rest of the year and beyond to talk. Maybe we'll get some updates along the way. But let's
Sure.
talk about, you mentioned you got some feedback, some concern. Communication, education, probably top of mind as, putting together documentation and communicating it not only to existing members, but also future employees. I mean, if I'm the personnel director, I'd want to know how, the benefits available. That's going to be a big step that hopefully the team will address, but also the help with a new vendor to communicate some of this as well, I would suspect.
That's exactly right, Jeffrey. It's going to be a huge effort for these folks. And I mean, right now, for folks who are eligible for either the DB or the DC plan, they're a very small number. They're called non-classified state employees that are eligible. We provide them with, 40 pages of information on how they make that decision, whether they want to stay in the defined benefit plan or move to the defined contribution plan. For new members, it's going to be, this is what your plan is. Your job, and you have to accept it, is to figure out where you want your money to go. How do you want it invested? Obviously, we'll have a default in that plan, but educating them on what their retirement plan is going to be, and then providing the statute or the bill requires us to provide education ongoing so that people can understand how to make those investment elections. And I think we're really going to have to rely on our carrier for that, because we're just state employees too. We're not licensed to do that kind of stuff, and we're going to have to rely on that third-party administrator to do that for us. Yeah,
there's a lot of big decisions coming in the future for you, the team, but also for that new administrator. Scott, we wish you all the best. We're going to have to leave it there, but look, we're going to bring you back again very soon, maybe next month. We'll keep checking in with you. Scott Miller, always a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Thank you very much. Have yourself a great day.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the latest curated news and lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more, all in one place, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to search our archives, check out our latest content? Well, visit our website and, of course, all of our streaming partners. We're back again tomorrow for another edition of BRN AM. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes. Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the First Lifestyle and Wellness Network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.